So in Christchurch, about a decade ago, there was an earthquake which resulted in the demolition of a large urban area, which is the red zone. My friend lives right next to the red zone. She's right on the edge where the demolition happened. Every now and then, I would go to her house and we would go on walks in the night. About 3 years ago, it was just the two of us and we went pretty deep into the red zone. Around a point where there used to be a house, we saw what looked like a short, probably like 4 to 5 feet, hunched person near a huge bush. We assumed it was like a crackhead or something. When I saw it, I got a lump in my throat and got goosebumps. But my friend went ahead and tried to talk to it. When she said, "What's up?" there was this weird animalistic noise. Sort of like a New Zealand possum if you've ever heard one. And then it stood up and ran into a bush on its hind legs. We were both really confused and tried to find it in the bush, but couldn't see anything. I got really worried at this point and asked if we could go home. As we walked back, we started to get lost, even though it's usually really easy to find your way around. We'd walked for like 5 minutes before seeing the figure, but it took us nearly half an hour to get back home. When we did, I couldn't sleep that night and felt myself sweating really bad, even though it wasn't hot. My friend felt the same. Does anyone have a similar encounter or know why this might have been? Most people don't believe me, and I feel insane. But my friend remembers it vividly too. We weren't on drugs, except for some weed, and it definitely wasn't an animal. No animal in Christchurch is that big. If someone could shed some light on this, it would be great. Never seen anything like it before or since. In my country, there's this folklore about witches. To this day, in many small cities and towns, people, mostly older folks, still believe in witches that come at night to eat our children. According to legend, witches take the form of an owl and will fly around at night looking for unbaptized babies to eat. They will put a sleeping spell on the mother so she won't hear the baby cry, and she'll wake up to a dead baby in the morning. Sometimes, witches will sense a woman that's close to giving birth, and will stick to that area just waiting. I've known someone whose niece died, SIDS according to doctors, and they strongly believe it was a witch. I'm 8.5 months pregnant, and I rarely give in to those superstitions. Yesterday, my mill started telling me about some lady that lost her baby due to a witch, and that I should start taking precautions. So my mill gives me a red bracelet with some saint on it. My husband is a believer in those things, so I wear it mostly for him. I'm at the stage in my pregnancy where it's hard to sleep, and I wake up a lot throughout the night. I was having some weird dreams last night and woke up more than usual. My kids sleep with the TV on during the weekend, and we also have night lights around the house. At 3 a.m, I opened my eyes and found myself in complete darkness. I always leave my door open and some light always comes in. I heard something moving in my room and then in the hallway. I felt it. That feeling you get when you know there's something or someone there. I didn't think so I got up and turned on my light. Looking down the hall, I saw all the nightlights on the floor unplugged. I walked to my kid's bedroom and found it completely dark as well. I turned the lights on and saw the TV unplugged as well. I still had a feeling of something in the house, and then I heard something running on the roof right above me, and dogs in the neighbourhood going crazy. I went back to my bedroom to wake my husband up, and right next to my bed, on the floor, was that red bracelet. It looked like it had been undone and just laying there, and then I heard it. I've lived here 4 years now, and I had never heard an owl around here, but there it was, making its owl sounds. I know what I felt. There was something in my home. I woke my husband up and we checked the house. There was no intruder. I can't explain the feeling I got. I've had some paranormal experiences before, but this was different. Like daring me in a way, mocking me. I'm wondering if I should be scared. Okay, so when I was like a really young boy, I remember seeing sudden imagery of a person taking a single step out from behind a barrier in the corner of my eye. It could be a wall, a car, a tree, anything. I would just see a person taking a single step out from behind it. Once I turned to look at who it was, though, I would find nobody there to see. Another thing is, I never saw the full appearance of the person walking out from behind whatever barrier it was. I only saw their shoe and leg before whirling around in surprise. It was almost always at night, from what I can remember. One vivid memory is when I was with my mom in a parking lot, and I saw someone in full white clothing. It was a suit with nice shoes, I'm pretty sure. Begin to step away from behind a car. I turned to look, and there was nobody there. I remember asking her, Mom, do you ever see a person walking in the corner of your eye, but they're not really there? She told me that I was seeing an angel. I was young, around 9 or 10, so I believed her. But in later years, I began to actually question what I was seeing. The occurrences were always sudden, never failing to startle me. I would wonder what the hell just happened every time. By now, I'm 16 years old, and I haven't seen any of these people in a long, long time. But it keeps coming back up in my head. What was I seeing? Does anyone else experience this? Why has it stopped? I have so many questions. Does anyone have any similar stories or know what was happening? Anything at all would help. It's been a mystery to me for my whole life. So I, male, 30, haven't had a paranormal experience of any kind until this past weekend. I was staying in the guest room at my father's house, which has quilts from each of my ancestors hanging on the walls. My father's house is new, brand new in fact. They moved in this April after the house burned down on Christmas Eve of 2019. They'd only been living in the house a couple of months before the exterior fireplace connected to the house lit the roof on fire. The house is enormous. The room I'm staying in shares the wall with a bathroom on the west and a room with a full bar to the north. That room connects with the living room slash kitchen to the north, which is huge. I'd say the distance between the guest bedroom and the living room is about as long as a bus, so they're a bit of a distance away. I'm sitting in bed, passively playing Animal Crossing just after midnight, maybe 12:30, when I hear my dad talking on the phone. He's absolutely a workaholic, so for a second, I didn't think much of it. But he retired a few months ago and doesn't stay up late at all anymore. The conversation sounded pretty tense, and I couldn't quite hear all that was being discussed, but my dad sounded very matter of fact. From what little I picked up, he was aggressively trying to explain his reasoning for disliking some guy. I got closer to the door to hear better, not wanting to open it and disturb him, but the sound didn't get any louder. I decided to open the door, and when I did, the voice disappeared. I like white noise to sleep, but my dad hates it, so he keeps his house dead quiet. I walked into the living room, trying to hear whatever might be going on, but it remained silent. I shook it off and decided to use the bathroom right before bed. I sat down on the toilet, phone in hand, and proceeded to drop the kids off at the pool. Then I heard my sister's voice, closer than my father's voice was, and clearer as well. My sister is very much into the paranormal and is very much convinced that paranormal things are happening to her. She certainly has treated a Ouija board as a toy for many years and always desired to have a ghostly encounter. So I'm not sure if she provoked something or not. I remain skeptical, but am re-evaluating those feelings now. She recently had a baby and was staying the night at my dad's because the baby was sick. I still couldn't phrase what was being said, but I could tell she was telling a story. The only clear thing I heard was, "He is killed, and he will kill again." And that was more than enough for me to pinch it off, wash my hands, and run to bed as fast as I could. I put in headphones and stayed up for another hour and a half watching Animaniacs until I was tired enough to sleep. When I turned off the phone and took out my headphones, I could hear my dad's voice again. It sounded like it came from the bed I was in, and it said, "Hey bud," just like my dad does. Only there was nobody there. I think I encountered a mimic, though I'm not entirely sure. I'm curious what you think and how I can best avoid pissing it off, or preferably, ever hearing from it again. It started about 18 years ago. I was a teenager and lived in the outback of Queensland, Australia. About 380 kilometres of driving to the closest coastline. I was a pretty normal kid, not into anything paranormal or supernatural. I liked video games, obviously still do, girls and wrestling. So once a week, my mother and I would take a 40-minute walk to my grandparents' house to watch WWE with them. We had always done this, and it was kind of the highlight of my weeknights back then. By the time we left my grandparents, it was usually close to midnight. This particular night was in early spring, so I remember the temperature being really nice. Not hot yet, and a slight sweetness to the air. The moon was almost full, so the area was very well illuminated. My mother and I often took a shortcut, following an old train line. It went close to the tree line, but there was a chain link fence that would separate the tree line from the cracks and a few street lights that peppered the track area. As we're walking down the tracks, my mother walking behind me, I see what looks like a litter of dead kittens that were not there when we made our way to my grandparents' house. Feral cats were pretty normal in my time, so while sad, I didn't think much of it. As I'm about to pass by the kittens, my mother lets out a weird sound. So I stop to look back at her. She's frozen and looking at the kittens. I look down and they're gone. I instantly get a prickly feeling running down my neck, and the light closest to us flickers out. I freak out and grab my mother's arm to run, when I see something really big jump on the side of the chain link fence. It's whitish grey in the moonlight and moved fast into the tree line. I couldn't tell if it had fur or not. We hear this shrill growl, cry, and I start running as fast as my legs would take me, my mother right beside me, yelling that I better not leave her. I hear the fence again, glimpse back, and see nothing. But we're close to our street at this point, and I dare not stop running. Ahead of us, the chain link fence is about to run out, as we leave the tracks, giving way to the tree line once more. I'm so scared at this point. I swear I hear something running in the trees, but I couldn't bring myself to look. We hear that growl or cry once more and burst onto the road, all the way to our house and inside. Locking the door, like that would actually do anything if it wanted us. My mother is crying, and I can't find my voice or collect my thoughts. Needless to say, I didn't sleep. I sat in my room, looking toward the tree line across the street. I wasn't expecting to see something, but a part of me couldn't help but watch. I never saw it again. We moved away a few years later. I'm now in my 30s and have my own family and kids. Still in Australia, but a lot further south. We've had a lot of rain this spring, and it keeps setting off the safety switch in our electricity box for some reason. 2 nights ago, at 1:13 a.m, I noticed the kitchen had no power. I gather my shoes and light to go out to the box and fix it. It's pouring down rain, and there's a big tree that I have to get through to get to the box. I do just fine, pry open the box and fix what needs fixing. As I close the box, I get this prickly feeling down my neck, and I feel like I'm being watched. Out of nowhere, I hear a shrill growl. I froze, the memory flooding back into my head. My hands start shaking, but I make sure the box is closed properly and head back towards the tree. I try to duck under its branches, and it catches the collar of my shirt, yanking me back unexpectedly. I nearly yell out, but force my shirt free. I get up and go inside, shaking, soaking wet and slightly annoyed. I go to my room, where my wife is with our baby. The tree is on the other side of our window. As I enter the room, my wife asks what grabbed me, and did it make that weird sound? I looked surprised, thinking the sound was just my head playing tricks on me. I reply, the tree caught me. She shakes her head. No, it didn't. I saw something grab you and you fell. I laugh a little nervously and remove my wet clothing, reassuring her there's nothing there. She doesn't look convinced and closes the curtains. I change and gather my wet things for the wash. As I'm putting them in the laundry, I noticed a rip on my shirt collar. 3 rips, all near my collar, but so cleanly ripped, you think it was cut. I threw away the shirt. I didn't want my wife to see and be freaked out even more. I don't know if the second thing has anything to do with the first. I still don't even know what the first thing was, or how I'd begin to find out. I'm just a nerdy dad. There's a young adult book series called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark that as a child I would often check out from the public library. In one of those books, there's a particular story by Ray Bradbury called The Crowd, which is about a man who ends up in a car wreck. After being dragged out of the car, he finds himself surrounded by a thick crowd of silently watching people. They don't move, they don't speak. They just stand there staring down at him. When the paramedics arrive, the crowd vanishes. This was the only story in the series, but truly frightened me. Little did I know that, years later, that story had prepared me for my own real-life encounter with the crowd. I was living in Lacey, Washington when this happened. I was living in an apartment complex located just off on Ruddle Road. The road had a nasty curve not far away that was prone to car accidents, especially at night. Some serious, some fatal. One evening, while watching TV in the living room, the power suddenly flickered and then blinked out. Seconds later, I could hear the sound of a car crashing on the main road. In the silence that followed, I decided to put on my shoes and black trench coat and run up the road to see if anyone needed help. When I got to the road, I immediately looked to my left where the infamous curve was. There, in the small stand of trees that lined the road, was an overturned car. From what I could tell, the car had taken out a power pole on the other side of the road before careening into the small stand of trees, coming to rest on its hood. Next to the car, there was a small yet thick crowd of people standing in a circle. I jogged over, having to practically push my way through the crowd to find out what they were silently staring at. At the centre of this macabre crowd was a young woman. She was moaning and writhing around, eyes wide in terror and wet with tears as she kept scanning the crowd of silent observers, pleading for help with her gaze. I dashed in, knelt down by her side and grasped her left hand. The crowd took a collective step backwards. It was then I suddenly remembered the story from my childhood. My stomach sank. These were them, the people. It was real. It was all around us, and I felt like I was keeping this crowd from coming closer and doing who knows what. Look at me. Just look at me, I said, trying to push down my own fear. To my relief, her eyes flicked to mine. I told her, "You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay," before saying louder, "Has anyone called 911 yet?" There was no response from the crowd. I quickly fished out my cell phone from my pocket and dialed it myself. One hand on the phone, the other still grasping the woman's hand, it was an agonizing few minutes before the paramedics arrived. I kept speaking to her both to keep us calm and to keep her from looking up at the people. When the paramedics finally arrived, the entire crowd abruptly vanished, exactly like in the story. I didn't let go of the woman's hand until I was literally shoulder to shoulder with the paramedics. At that point, I walked back to the sidewalk and looked around. There were only a few neighbours on the opposite side of the street watching what was going on. Other than the paramedics, the injured woman, and myself, the street was deserted. I shuddered, looked at the woman one more time, and then ran back home. To this day, I can't remember the ending of that scary story. I feel like I don't need to. I saw it with my own eyes. When I was a child, there were times when I dreamed. I would find myself walking a narrow path that was surrounded by a thick forest. At one point, I would come across a fence with an open space, which the path ran through. And leaning up against the fence off to one side was this man in a yellow suit and matching coloured fedora hat. Since I first met him, he would always be there at the fence looking at his beautiful golden pocket watch. As I got close to him, he would click the lid of his watch closed and look up at me with a gentle smile. I would run up to him and give him a hug, laughing happily as though meeting up with a lost friend. The last time I saw him in my dreams, he took the time to explain his pocket watch to me. It was an intricate affair, with not only told the hours, it also told the current year and month it was. It was many years later before I saw him again, this time in reality. The magic shop. This happened to me when I was living in Bellevue, Washington. I would often go to the Pike Place Market in Seattle. I knew the market by heart from childhood visits to my dad's best friend Michael's house off of 85th and Aurora. The market was deceptively huge. Most people just walked the street level of the market, where you could buy meats, fruits and vegetables, and various handmade crafts. The market actually has 3 other floors underneath, where you would find various bookstores, clothing shops, jewelry shops, a comic book store, and even a magic shop. The trick is finding either the staircase or walking down a semi-steep ramp just off to the right of the brass pig on the street level. One day, I decided to travel to the market and find a present for myself as my birthday was the next day. I was greeted by the familiar musky smell of incense wafting from the Tenzing Momo incense shop, off to the left and up a narrow ramp. I walked slowly up to the brass pig, turned right and sauntered down the ramp into the maze of businesses below. I walked down the narrow hallway of the second level until eventually it opened into a room with an enormous clock in the corner and a ring of chairs in the centre which faced outwards. From what I read, this part of the market used to be a train station way back in the early 1900s. I walked into the magic shop on the right and began to excitedly browse the narrow aisles in its myriad of items. As I walked over to the glass cabinets, I noticed a group of people standing in the entrance, whispering to each other with their backs to me. I looked over at the owner and asked, "What's going on?" "A lady is ODing out there," he said grimly. "Have you called 911?" I asked. "I am right now," he said, grabbing his phone. Carefully, I pushed my way through the murmuring crowd. Directly across from the store was a blonde woman slumped in a chair. Another lady was sitting next to her, holding her hand with tears in her eyes. Suddenly, I saw the spirit of the blonde literally stand up out of herself, look around, and scream silently. Then she fell back into herself as I heard a familiar click from across the room. I looked over to my left, and to my surprise, was the man in the yellow suit and hat. He was holding his golden pocket watch with its matching coloured chain. He jerked his head up, and for a moment, we locked eyes before he just disappeared. "Oh my God," said the woman holding the blonde's hand. She's breathing! She's breathing!" Not long after, the paramedics arrived and began to attend to the blonde. I pushed my way back through the crowd and hid myself in one of the aisles, shaken from what I just saw. Once the paramedics and the crowd were gone, I asked a young man who was also in the store if he could walk me out as I was too scared to leave by myself. I was relieved that he said yes. He escorted me until I was a couple blocks away from the metro bus station and we parted ways. The next morning, as I was sitting on the couch, my friend and roommate Sean came out of his bedroom. His eyes were enshrined in dark circles and he trembled as he shuffled over to me. "What's wrong, Sean?" I asked, leaning forward. With shaky hands, he handed me a yellow folder. "This is for you." I looked at the cover and my gut twisted as I read the title, Conversation at the train station. I sat in silence as I read the story. When I finished, I looked at Sean. I woke up this morning around 2 a.m. and wrote this. I couldn't help it. The whole time that I sat there writing, I felt there was someone standing behind me with their hands on my shoulders. I didn't dare stop until I was done. I was too scared. So am I. Have I ever told you about meeting a man in a yellow suit? He shook his head, tears beginning to well in his eyes. So I told him the childhood story as well as what happened the day before. I explained that the man he described in his story, wearing the suit and fedora, was the same man. We both burst into tears at that point and hugged each other on the couch. It took us a long time to calm down. Finally, when we both stopped crying, I leaned back and cradled the folder in my arms. "Thank you, Sean. I'll treasure this," I said. To this day, I believe that the story was an apology from the man in yellow for scaring me at the market the day before, as much as it was a birthday present from Sean. To this day, I still have it. I remember back when I was a child, I would go to my cottage with my grandparents pretty often. It was a quiet, cozy little cottage up in Canada, on a piece of land gifted to my family by my uncle, who owns land he uses for his farm. More often than not, it ended up just being myself and my grandparents up there. But nevertheless, it was always an amazing time. It was surrounded by forest all around, and always had an eerie feel to it. About 500 meters away from the property is an abandoned mica mine that was collapsed intentionally back when mica prices dropped and use for the material diminished. That, mixed with the fact that there's random pieces of equipment and vehicles ranging from old-fashioned TVs to broken down school buses, it made for some pretty amazing adventures. Now that I've painted a picture in your mind of the type of area my cottage is located in, let me proceed with the event. I was up at my cottage with my grandparents and my sister. It was raining, and there wasn't much to do outside, so we were spending it indoors. My grandmother was watching her TV shows, as she always did, and my grandfather was outside doing something manly. He's always been the type to never sit still and accomplish such great things. Naturally, my sister and I got hungry, so we decided to make some cereal. We make ourselves our bowls and sit opposite to each other at the table. Now, this table is perfectly round and curves down on all sides and widens again at the base. This would make the table very awkward and hard to manipulate. Anyways, as I grab my spoon and start mixing up the cereal, I let go of the spoon to say something to my sister, and the bowl slides towards her. Being a child and being oblivious, I casually say, "Whoa, how'd you do that?" To which she replies that it wasn't her. So I checked under the table to see if she had something under the table there, but she didn't. I sat back up and said, "Whatever, cool trick anyways," and grabbed my spoon, and as soon as my spoon left the bowl to bring up to my mouth, the bowl slid towards her again, but even harsher this time. Needless to say, we both jumped out at there screaming, and our imaginations were left to blame. Flash forward a couple years, and the exact same situation happens, except this time at my house. It was with a bowl of ramen, but the exact same situation happened. But this time I was treating my sister very differently, accusing her and blaming her for what was happening, even though I could see it wasn't her. To this day, we've still brought it up to one another occasionally, just to verify that what we've remembered is accurate and true. Many other situations have happened, but my phone is being very laggy right now, so I'll leave it with this question I keep on asking myself. Could we have possibly upset a spirit who worked as a miner, who possibly perishes that we're unaware about? I'm not sure if this will get any attention, but if it does, I can explain more encounters I've had. All of your opinions matter to me. Please share your thoughts. I wasn't more than 7 or 8 at the time. I'm in my early 20s now. I remember this vividly. At the time, I lived in a small town home with just my older sister and my mother. We each had our own rooms on the same floor. My sister's room was next door to mine, and my mother's was no more than 10 feet down the hall. I don't remember much of the day leading up, but it happened when I was asleep. I don't even know if sleep is the right word. At that moment in time, all I knew was darkness. Darkness like I had never known before. Just black nothingness. As if a black mist had set over me and I lost all sense of time. It was hot and I could feel myself sweating, but I couldn't move and it was difficult to breathe. As if the mist that sat over me was heavy. I was just there in the nothingness, terrified but unable to speak or move or wake up. Suddenly, the door burst open. It wasn't loud enough to wake my sister up, but I instantly sat up. The black mist disappeared, as if sucked out of the room by something. Sweat was running down my face, and my mother stood at the doorway and stared briefly at the room. She quickly scooped me up and brought me to her room for the rest of the night. Years later, when I was in my later teen years, she told me that night she was dreaming when she heard someone tell her to wake up to check on me. And when she did, she said she felt the negative energy leaving when she opened the door. We've talked about it a few times over the years, but I've never experienced anything like that again. I was just wondering if anyone has any idea what it could be, or if anyone has had a similar experience. I know this could be sleep paralysis, but due to the fact that my mom had her dream and felt the negative energy, I'm thinking it's more than that. For a while, I thought it was a curse.